will let me record because StreamYard, I don't pay StreamYard anymore. Anyway, how are you?
Doing okay. How about yourself?
Good. So are you an idealist?
I would say yes. At this moment in time, idealism makes the most sense to me. I would say I was a former physicalist turned into an idealist.
Okay. What about how long ago would you say that you crossed over?
I entered the dark side probably a few years ago.
To the dark side, okay.
Yeah. I would say.
Who did it for you?
Who did it for me? Probably Bernardo Kastrups.
Really? Oh my God. Okay, so you agree with Bernardo Kastrups' analytic idealism?
I would say I agree with the core tenets of it. When getting into the nitty gritty, I think there's some things he probably needs to work out. But
okay.
Yeah,
I'd be interested I'm interested in how he thinks all of that works. I find his dissociative personality disorder stuff to be really weak.
I think that's probably where it needs a little bit more fine tuning.
Yeah, quite a bit of fine tuning, I'd say, because you can't just pull some controversial psychotic symptom out of the book and claim that somehow makes sense metaphysically. It just doesn't to me. That the brain would be a filter. And then his, the first problem I had is his, when he started looking at Robin Carhart Harris's brain scan stuff from 2012, I think it was. He said, basically, he said psychedelics make your brain shut down. No, ether does, but not psychedelics. They make parts of your brain shut down, and they make our other parts a bit more active. And there were some later, basically, Carhart Harris used some bad techniques in some of the functional MRI scans, and there's a lot of controversy over that right now about what psychedelics do exactly, but it certainly doesn't shut your brain down. There's still a whole lot going on, and he uses that as evidence. Yeah,
right. I haven't read all the fine details of all the studies he cites. My understanding is that the argument he's trying to make is that not necessarily that it shuts down, but there's no increase in activity. And he's saying that from a physicalist perspective, if you're having these rich phenomenological experiences, you would expect more of an increase in brain activity if there's a correlation between experience and physical activity.
But why? Why would you expect that? There's let's see, the increase in sensation basically comes with a decrease in conceptualization and with fine tuning, or basically, like when you look at something, when you look at a cube, if you're looking at the cube on psychedelics, the cube looks like, it looks like a whole bunch of little sense impressions, and it distorts, and it does, as you move your eyes, it distorts. Well, there's a whole lot more processing that goes on that turns it into a solid cube for a person that's not under psychedelics. So there would be more processing to give you a less strange set of perceptions. So that's the thing that he's missing, and that he's apparently not understanding. When you're on psychedelics, there's a whole bunch of sensory processing that gets shut down with the default mode network. And that sensory processing is typically what makes the world look a little bit boring to us, because we look at one cube, we see another cube, it's like, oh, ho hum, that sort of thing. It sort of puts us in a mode of we know what that stuff is, so we don't have to think about it too much. But if you're on psychedelics, you lose all of that post processing. It kind of goes away. And that's one of the so that just falls apart if you're a psychonaut, and I am, and you've read a lot of the literature. His argument doesn't hold water, And I just wish he would quit using just so empirical constructs to support his arguments. And I wish he would support his arguments in a different way.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey,
I'm happy to go further into the scientific evidence, and I haven't gone into that as much yet. The thing that convinced me most was less the scientific evidence and more the philosophical argument behind what he's saying.
yeah,
The scientific stuff, I guess that can be more nitpicked around, what is it actually saying, and then I think if it doesn't add up to what he's saying, then there's things there he has to address. But for me, philosophically, idealism. Well, I guess defining I don't know how you define physicalism versus idealism. The way I think of physicalism is that there's something that exists independent of consciousness, something that is out there, independent of the mind. Whereas I think of idealism is everything is within consciousness, and we can account for what we perceive as the physical world through mental processes. And then physicalism tries to account for subjectivity by the objects of perception. So it's basically saying these things exist out there, these concepts, these cognitions. The cognitions are the things in themselves as opposed to part of the mind.
okay.
So I think there's conceptual things within that don't make a whole lot of sense for me with physicalism.
Yeah. I had some questions for you. Okay, what problem do you think? Yeah, what is the problem that idealism solves? If you're a physicalist, you have a problem. What is that problem?
Are you referring to like the hard problem of consciousness?
Is that the only problem it solves? Is that kind of the?
I guess
is that the incentive to be an idealist?
the incentive, I don't know even, I guess what makes most plausible sense to me, what seems truer. I don't know if it's even necessarily an incentive or a psychological motivation to choose one or the other. It's just one makes more sense to me.
Okay. Yeah, and I'd say that, that's why I'm a physicalist, because idealism doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm hoping that you can help me with that, because I'm sure that it makes sense to you, and I just don't understand how, I guess, is my problem. I'm looking for, I had a set of questions. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, so is there anything that you find distasteful about physicalism that you find more emotionally pleasing about idealism?
Well, as I mentioned, I was a physicalist for a long period of time. It made the most sense to me. And I didn't really grow up religious. I was okay with the fact that there's no God. And so I think a lot of physicalists try to use psychological motivation that if you're an idealist, it's because you're trying to get to a God or some sort of being that provides you safety and comfort. And,
I'm not making a charge here. I'm just asking you if one is more pleasant to you than the other.
More pleasant, you say?
Yeah. Does
idealism?
idealism?
Think about it.
Okay.
Yeah, because each could have potential psychological payoffs. As a physicalist, there could be a psychological payoff knowing that suffering comes to an end at some point. Because if you die,
that's
there's no guilt, there's no fear, there's no shame. You're right. And that might motivate some people to want to commit suicide because they say, well, life sucks. I'm just going to end it now because I'm a physicalist. I know it's never going to, I don't have to deal with this anymore.
You could say the same thing about idealists, though. I mean, life sucks, so I'm just going to go out there into the cloud and merge with the universe. Or, if you're a Christian, well, I'm just going to get this over with and get into the afterlife. So, I mean, this I've never heard anybody accuse, other than Kastrup and you just now, accuse a physicalist of taking the easy way out by saying, oh, it's all going to end, because annihilation is a really big fear motivating. Well, Christians use that as motivation for an atheist, that, basically, oh, you could have an afterlife forever and ever and ever and all that stuff. I've never heard anybody other than Kastrup and you just now claim that physicalism is the easy way out. I think annihilation is kind of frightening for a lot of physicalists, a lot of materialists. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Christianity could offer a sense of bliss and peace to people who are afraid of death.
Yeah.
For me, idealism doesn't necessarily imply bliss and euphoria once you die. There could be a process of working through shit that you haven't worked through. I guess there's some religions out there, with like believe in reincarnation, that you owe debts in the next life, and so it's not necessarily moving on to the next blissful state. And there's karmic debts to be paid.
Okay. Are you a Buddhist?
I wouldn't say I've subscribed to Buddhism, but probably if I had to choose one, I would lean more towards that over Christianity.
Yeah.
Any of the Abrahamic religions.
Yep. So would I. Actually, I call myself a Buddhist. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably along the Ellen Watts line. If you've ever read any Watts or followed any Ellen Watts.
Yeah. I like him.
But a secular reading of Ellen Watts, and I've never heard Ellen Watts cross over into anything but I'd be willing to look at something where he did. I know he did a lot of talking. He did a lot of audio recordings. I've got his books. I read them when I was a teenager, and that was pretty powerful in my life.
Yeah, no, I like the secular approach to it. That's part of what appeals to me about Kastrup. He kind of takes a more naturalistic explanation of things, as opposed to some Christians don't like him for that. Others do like it and feel like they can co-opt idealism for a certain theology.
Yep. So would you agree that all, your average man on the street who's never really thought about philosophy is basically operating from the paradigm that there are objects out there in the universe that are not me and that they're physical, that there are, there's an objective universe out there?
Would I say that's kind of the average Joe?
Yeah.
I would say it's probably the average Western Joe.
Okay. I'm not sure.
How much of that is basic intuition versus how much of that is culture that's been sort of imposed on people, and you assume it's kind of the basic intuition. So I think you get cultural messages starting very early on about what the world is and what ontologies are the best ontologies.
Yep. So, believing that the world is kind of made out of consciousness or made out of something mental, is that you would probably push back against me saying it that way? Like stars basically are made out of what? Consciousness?
I would say a star is a representation of a conscious state.
Okay. How does that work? Yeah, I don't understand how that works. Because, stars, I mean, if we were to study stars like we study the sun, right? And there's all sorts of fusion going on and all of that stuff. How do you reconcile all of the science about, what we can study? Like we cut something open and start looking at it. And, we can look at it in finer and finer detail, or we can run tests on it. How do you reconcile with that with it being a representation?
Well, I think first people have a misconception that idealism somehow minimizes science. I don't think it does. It more just changes the way you view scientific data and results. So if what we normally perceive as a physical object that's out there independent of consciousness is a representation of a conscious process, there's still consequences for how you interact with that. So cutting into something could be one conscious process interacting with another. So you were seeing something you're seeing the representation of a conscious process sort of unfolding.
Okay.
So a star, you can still study things, you can still cut them open, and that's a valid way of understanding how things operate, the mechanics of it. But doesn't necessarily mean that it exists in and of itself, independent of a mind, of a perceiving mind.
Okay, so I'm on one side of the planet and I have a seed and I cut it open under my microscope and I draw all the cell structures and figure it out, and then I cut open the cells and I look at the genetics and I come up with the gene sequence. Guy on the other side of the planet does the same thing to the same species of seed, and he ends up with the same results. Why would that be the case with idealism? Why wouldn't it be the case that there could be a very different way of viewing the seed on the other side of the planet that would end up with a different genetic sequence?
Okay, let me see if I understood you. So one person's on one planet, the other one's on the other planet. They
Other
both
side.
have similar results. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
They both have similar results in what they perceive.
Same results.
Same results.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so same planet though. We're talking about planet Earth.
Yeah. Yep. We're talking about a seed, like say,
cultures. We're talking about.
Let's it could be different cultures. Yeah.
Imagine a hypothetical scenario where there's an alien being on another planet who cuts open something and gets similar results, but maybe conceptualizes it differently.
Okay.
Perceives it differently because your cognitive process might be different than a human. So most humans probably have similar cognitive processes because you're of the same species. So you may process information in a relatively similar way. So I think that would make sense that you get similar results. And
why would two humans be the same on different sides of the planet and get similar results? Why would we have the same Kantian constructs or form? Well,
why would they have the same? Go ahead.
Let's talk about the seed first. Let's talk about the seed. Okay, one human on one side of the planet, another human on the other side of the planet. Let's not worry about culture. They're both geneticists, right? And they both get the same DNA sequence. Now, if these DNA sequences are nothing more than conscious representations of what, why are they getting the same result?
Well, idealism, at least analytic idealism, so there is an objective thing out there. It's just not physical in and of itself. So what's being represented, there's a shared world. What's being represented is a shared world. So a human may cognize that shared world in a similar way. But there could be variations in cultures, even on planet Earth. So the way one culture conceptualizes something could be different from the other if you've never had contact with one another.
How would another culture represent in a sequence of amino acids or nucleic acids in DNA? I mean, how would they see that differently?
Well, they would have different linguistic terms for it. They could have different ways of modeling it. Those are two. It may look relatively the same because you're getting at the similar experience, but it may have slight variations in how you conceptualize and model it.
Well, they'd make a different noise when they saw it. We'd call it DNA. They'd call it Coco Nuno. That doesn't make any difference. They're still looking at molecules and atoms in the same way that we are. How would another culture view that differently? That may be
if you had like a hypothetical, let's say a tribe in a jungle that's never had contact with any Western culture, I guess they could. First, they would have to develop the technology in order to do that.
Right.
And then, but I think humans theoretically have a similar cognitive scaffolding, the way they perceive and process information. And there's linguistic differences. I think those have an impact on perception too.
Yeah.
There's studies on how language changes the way you perceive colors and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Or
But
your exposure to different sets of colors, like exposure to blue for some tribes doesn't happen. I guess. Well, the sky, I guess, is blue, but I don't know.
right.
Yeah, I've heard some
Wasn't there
different.
some studies
Anyway,
with like indigenous people from the north, the so-called Eskimos, have different words for snow, different sort of
right.
concepts for
But that would be us interpreting something, but you would admit that they would come up with the same DNA sequence, however they represented nucleic acids. They would come up with the same sequence of DNA. There'd be the same 4-sequence code on one side of the
I
earth
think
and on the other side.
yeah, I mean, I think it probably would be modeled in relatively the same way because in both cases you're representing a shared experience.
Okay. Okay, a shared experience of something that's objective out there. So there's an objective world that looks a whole lot like the physical world, and there is some sort of a mind that maintains that.
Yeah, so the shared experience. So I mean, if you start from the beginning, what do I have access to? I have access to my subjective experience, which consists of feelings, thoughts, cognitions, perceptions. Everything sort of fits into one of those categories. And so
Okay.
the base of analytic idealism is not, if you want to call it the ontological primitive, is kind of more like feeling states. They're non-perceptual. They don't have colors, sounds, tastes. It's more of strivings or urges or a will. And there's something it feels like to be in that striving. So things we perceive are the representation of the will, if you want to say that, because Kastrup kind of builds on Schopenhauer's philosophy.
Okay. So so there's some huge mind out there, right? Some uber mind that is the universe, is the cosmos, and it's one consistent thing.
Yes, yeah, the idea is it's kind of like a unitary whole. It's one sort of experience. And plurality comes about by the universal mind trying to get a grip on itself, essentially, trying to break it into components and wholes to try to understand it.
Okay.
So what we perceive as plurality is sort of the mental scaffolding of the mind trying to get to understand itself.
Okay, so this mind out there, basically, or this
By the way, this is all
encompassing
my
mind.
interpretation of Kastrup. I'm not saying I'm giving 100% faithful interpretation of what Kastrup's saying. This is my interpretation.
I think you sound like you are. You sound like you're pretty close. Loki, will you get away from my mouse pad? I got a cat on my mouse pad. Let's see. So this basically all-encompassing mind, which is all there is, basically, is this outer mind, right? And we are dissociative.
Yeah, I would
What
say
does he
that the
call us?
mind, though, in its fundamental state, there is no inner and outer. There's no spatial temporal scaffolding. So it's spatially unbound, as Kastrup says. Space and time come
Spatially.
about as a result of trying to cognize experience.
Okay. So this outer mind, how can we characterize that? What is it doing? I mean, if it, if it's not in space time, it's not any of those things. It's just pure will, right? Pure will or emotion, or how does it end up creating this universe with all these small parts that we all participate in? Even just the planet Earth. We have 8 billion people all participating in that same cognition, right? That same dealing with objects. We drive cars, we put forks to our mouth, we eat cranberries, forage, whatever. We all do the same thing, right? Why is that? What is that outer mind doing? Or is it just like a big mystery to us, like Numina?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Schopenhauer approach is we're trying to find that out to some degree. It's sort of somewhat in our grasp, but also outside of it. So part of the process of metacognition is you're trying to grasp it. What is it that we're going? Yeah, it's a reason. Like a lot of people go to psychotherapy. Something is fueling them, driving them in directions that may be getting them in trouble. They don't fully understand it, and they're trying to get a grip on it.
Okay.
So, in a way, we as a whole are trying to get a grip on ourselves so we don't destroy ourselves, and which, yeah, may or may not happen. But
okay, but
yeah.
I don't understand why it creates this intricate scientific universe for us that we can slice and dice no matter. Okay, it creates space-time, and then it creates all of these little bits of stuff or fields in space-time that end up being atoms and molecules. And would you be surprised if we went to another star 4 light years away and found the same atoms and molecules? You wouldn't be surprised by that, right?
No.
So there's this consistency to this physical universe, to this space-time universe that's really consists of just an unimaginable amount of little parts that all seem to work the same way all the time in all parts of the universe. Why would what is the mind doing? The universal mind, what is it doing that would make that the case? Why would it make that the case? Why would it present this universe to us?
There's a consistency to human cognition and perception of the universal mind. So yeah, if a human goes from one galaxy to the next, there probably would be consistency. And seeing the so-called pixels of perception, the subatomic particles and all of that, because I think there's processes in different galaxies that are representing some sort of mind at large process. And, I think Kastrup talks about it kind of being a fractal. Yeah, the galaxy is sort of like a fractal.
Yeah, that's the way it
expands fractally.
That's the way a physicalist would represent it too. So let's see.
Kastrup would say that the physical manifestation of mind at large does manifest itself fractally. So the physicalist is maybe right in the sense that there is the fractal representation of it. It's just not the thing as it is in itself.
Okay. So the physicalists would still be wrong about that.
No, it would be right in perceiving it as a fractal. It would just not be what is the fractal representing. Okay.
What is it representing?
That's the task, is to find out.
Oh, okay. So that's a hard problem of Schopenhauer or Kastrup. We have another hard problem that we don't know why the mind is doing what it does and why it creates this universe, this cosmos.
Both collectively and individually, we don't fully know. Where, I guess, monkeys driven largely by instinct still. We'd like to think that we're maybe intellectually more capable, but I think that's probably our hubris as humans to think that we got it figured out.
Okay, wouldn't that? Well, yeah, hubris. That's the problem I have with idealism, I think, is hubris. Because you're basically saying that, okay, we have these we have this mental world going on inside of us. And you're saying that the entire cosmos is like that. And I call that hubris. That's one of my motivations for physicalism, is to put myself in my place as just a blob of goo.
To me, it's more humbling because it starts with what you have access from and goes from there. Whereas physicalism is an abstraction of what you have. It's positing things outside of your experience.
Well, it's a model, basically. Yeah, it's a model of the cosmos as being just physical stuff. And any physicalist would also, when we get down to the point where we're dealing with quantum fields and how particles interact, we would have to also say that, no, we don't know that part yet. We don't understand that yet. We can't get our minds around the geometry that would create this physical universe. So we seem to be on par with the hubris thing, except the idealists will claim that the universe has a mind kind of like we do, has emotions or will and aboutness, intentionality, all of that stuff. Whereas the physicalist was saying, no, that's just a little tiny blob of gooey human that does that. Nobody else does that. Nowhere else in the universe will you find that.
Yeah, I would say that I don't think idealism is anti-modeling, because modeling is cognizing that which hasn't been represented. So if the universe has not been fully representative, is probably what dark matter is. We don't fully understand what it is, and it hasn't been fully cognized and modeled. As far as like gooey, being made up of gooey goop, yeah, there's a representation of what we experience as ourselves as being flesh, blood, muscles. But we thought those are representations of experiences.
Okay, anti-modeling.
Yeah, I would say it's not anti-modeling, because a model is a narrative of your experience, a necessary one to kind of make sense of the world.
Right.
But physicalism takes that model and literalizes it, reifies it.
Okay. Yeah, and I would accuse idealism of doing the same thing with mental constructs, reifying them when they're nothing more than a model. I mean, this access that you think you have to your own mind, you don't. You're just modeling it. You're doing metacognition on your own mind, and you're coming up with a model. And you'll say, oh, I have thoughts and emotions and sense impressions and all of this stuff. But that's just another model, and that's stolen basically from a physicalist model of the senses, which we understand in a physical way. So I would say it's the same thing. You're still modeling. You have to. I mean, if you have an epistemology, how could you have that without a model? Unless you just want to say, blah blah blah. You have to have a model. And Kastrup definitely has a model that he's putting forth, right? And you have a model of this whole universe as being mental stuff. What's the difference between that and reifying? Like, if you're reifying objects out there saying, oh, I mean, I believe that I'm holding a little container of water right now. And I believe it's real. And you're saying we have a sense impression of that water and you think that's real. What's the difference? You're still modeling.
Yeah, like I said, the idealism is not anti-modeling.
Okay, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with modeling. But the ontological primitive is feeling, phenomenal consciousness. So by definition, it's the most immediate thing we have access to. It hasn't been modeled. It's what it's like to be. There is no representation. It's just how it feels to be. And that how it feels to be is being represented, and it's being modeled to try to make sense of what's going on.
Okay.
So it's not anti-modeling. It's anti-literalizing your models. Because models change, paradigms change.
So is physicalism. It's the same.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people do take their scientific concepts and constructs literally. That's scientific realism.
Well, yeah, I have a sort of what would you call it? If I were a squirrel, I have this nut in my cheek that says, "Yeah, this stuff's really out there." I sort of have that intention, but I do understand that I am modeling it, and that is my epistemology. That basically I model it, but
what are you modeling?
The universe out there, things that I encounter in my life. Basically, I have a model of myself as an organism. And the world around me. So, I mean, that's a model, right? It's a physical model of the universe.
Encounter to be a synonym for encounter to me is experience.
What's that?
When you say encounter, to me, a synonym for that is experience. You know the world through your experience.
More than that. It's a little more than that. There's the thing that a lot of idealists and even physicalists do not consider is that you did not hatch as an adult human being with some model of the physical universe and how to move your hands and how to look at things, how to recognize a cube, how to recognize any of that. It's all developmental. You start out as a zygote, and basically you start interacting with the material and the other cells around you, and basically you bloom into an organism with organs because of that interaction. And then that interaction continues when you pop out your mama. You basically start flailing your limbs around and moving things and interacting with the universe. And over the course of the first 3 years of your life, you build this physical reality around you. And that would make you a naive materialist, basically, or naive physicalist at about age 3. And from there on, you can get into science, and you can basically extend that model and look more closely at things, say with a microscope, and see more stuff. But you're just going in the same direction. You're doing it developmentally, and you're doing it interactively with your body. So you're not just getting a sense impression of a cup and saying, oh, I see a cup there. That isn't how it works. That isn't where you got that information from. We know from neuroscience that that's not how your brain works.
I think an idealist would recognize that, because when you say you build a model, you're cognitively constructing a model of something. So you're talking about a process of knowledge, a process of building on your experience. Idealism is a psychological theory, essentially. It talks about how your cognitions develop over time and why it develops over time.
Okay.
So I think it's definitely fits. Analytic idealism especially takes a lot of influence from psychoanalysis, which talks about human development and how you evolve from being in somewhat of an undifferentiated state, kind of with your mother, and then you separate, you kind of develop your own sense of identity, your own ego identity, if you want to call it that, which is influenced by culture.
Yeah, you also develop your ability to interact in the physical universe and feed yourself and basically take care of yourself, live and breathe, that sort of thing. And so that's all developmental, right? But I see no incentive to call it mental. That would be reifying it in another way. That would be just choosing. We could either choose to say, oh, it's physical stuff, which is kind of a shallow term, or we could say it's mental stuff. When we say it's physical stuff, what we kind of mean is that, I can grasp this cup, which is made of clay, right? And it has a substance to it, but that's shallow, okay? There are deeper levels to it. There are, quantum fields interacting or whatever. But then you're saying that it's mental stuff, which means that it has something to do with the way my mind works. When I grasp it, I get a sensation from my hand. Why would you get a sensation from your hand under idealism? Why wouldn't you get a sensation from your guaples or something totally made up? Why would there be this restriction?
Not 100% sure I'm following you, but you don't have to call it mental. You can call it experiential.
Okay, experiential.
A sensation is an experience.
Okay. Why is it this experience? Why is it this experience of the tactile sensation of my hand grasping this clay cup? Why is it that experience? And why would you have it too? Why would you not make up another class of experience entirely? If it's mental, we know that we can go to other realms, right? We can use imagination. Why can't we imagine something different than what we are?
Good. And mind-altering drugs may allow that. But probably the baseline of human experience, there's similarities across human species and how you cognize things and experience things. So I think the way you process information, there's similarities across the human race.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's
Why-
theoretically possible that a different species would cognize and experience it and sense it differently.
Yeah, that's the other thing I couldn't understand about Kastrup is why he believes in evolution and why there would be a human race under idealism, because I don't think you have the same constraints unless you have a physical universe. And when I talk about there being a physical universe, all that I mean is that there are these constraints. And these constraints apply all the way around me and then into me as an organism, right? Like I'm an organism and I have constraints as an organism, right? But there are constraints, whereas with idealism, I don't understand why there would be constraints.
I see what you're getting at. Well, there's limits to metacognition. There's limits to your ability to, re-represent and symbolize the world. So
okay, but we're using metacognition on what's going on in our mind too, right? So I mean, these sense impressions that you believe that we have of the world, you also have sense impressions of what's going on in your mind. Why do you believe those things are real?
Why do I believe the sense impressions are real?
Yeah, why do you believe that these things going on in your mind are real if there's no physical universe? They're just mental stuff. Why would you believe in them?
Well, I think mental processes are real. It depends on how you define real. I experience them. I sense them. I feel them.
Okay, but I experience cups too. I experience this cup too. Why is that any different than what I experience on the inside? Why is that any different?
Well, when you say experience cup, you're perceiving it. There's a perception.
You're perceiving it?
How are you seeing? When you say you're seeing, you're appealing to perception. You're appealing to your vision.
Okay, I'm not just seeing it. I'm not just seeing it. I have my left hand on it.
Right. So you're appealing to the sensation of touch, sight.
Okay.
So you're appealing to your sensations, which are experiential.
Okay, why would I not believe that there is just a cup out there and a hand, and it's all connected to me as an organism? Why is that any different than this metacognition of me having senses and feels and things like that? I mean, when you start talking about thoughts and feelings and what it feels like to be me, you're also modeling and using metacognition to represent something inside of you. And you're making an extra step where I'm saying when I feel the cup, that's all there is the cup. Okay.
Idealism, everything is in consciousness. So the cup is in consciousness.
In consciousness.
Physicalism would say that brain processes in your brain are creating the image of the cup. So the cup doesn't actually exist outside of you. It's more of a. Are you saying that there's a direct one-to-one relation between?
Yes.
How do you define physicalism?
No. Okay. This physicalist does not believe in representation inside of your mind. Okay. So we can just rule that out. That's not what happens. So what I'm saying is that you're also reifying what you find in your mind. Like you're reifying these senses in your mind, and you're kind of calling them a mental state or thinking them as a mental state. And you're saying that they're as real as what we perceive outside of ourselves, right? You're still reifying something. You're reifying consciousness or the mind or mental. And how do you justify that? Because you're also perceived when you do metacognition, you're turning your mind on itself and perceiving something about your mind. You're still perceiving. Why do you believe that stuff's real?
when I turn my cognition upon myself. Is that what you said? Why do I believe that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That would be metacognition. That
Yeah.
I'm creating a narrative about what's going on internally for me, but it would be an abstraction away from the more direct experience. So
Yeah. One of the
it is
things that you just said is you said in consciousness without space time. How do you define in?
in consciousness would be subjective experience. Would be space time comes about by trying to create a model of your experience, of base experience.
Okay. But when you say in consciousness, you're in your consciousness, you're also creating a model of what's inside of you. What does Kastrup call? He calls these disassociated little pieces. He has a name for them. Alters, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the concept of an alter and a disassociation is a container concept, and that's from a space-time model.
Yeah. The container would be an illusion.
Okay.
The ego basically tries to make sense of the world and creates a sense of subject-object to make sense of the world. In order to conceptually know the world, you have to have kind of like a subject-object.
Okay.
But it is, in a sense, an illusion as well. So the idealism
Okay, but
doesn't
that's
necessarily treat the ego as a literal thing, as a way to make sense of the world.
okay. But when you say in consciousness, you have the same illusion that you're inside of something, that you perceive something. You're still modeling. You're still doing the same exact thing that we do with physicalism. You're making a model, and in Kastrup's case, he's making a model of the uber mind, I call it, or the outer mind, and the inner disassociative minds and the filters and all of that. He still has a model.
Yeah, like I said, idealism isn't anti-modeling. It's just not taking it literally. It's
Okay, how do you know that physicalism what do you mean by taking it literally? Like,
taking
okay,
your model and saying that's what exists out there, independent of subjective experience.
okay, when I have this cup on my table and you're saying I'm taking it literally and it's different from what you're doing, how is it different?
Well, from your version of physicalism, what exists if there's not something observing the cup?
The cup exists. Okay.
What does it look like?
From your point of I can show you.
How do you know what it looks like?
Might be a really good idea to show you my cup. Can you see your screen? I call this a red kitty.
I don't see it.
You can't see it, or you can?
No, I can't see it.
Oh,
I trust you have a cup, but
so you're on a phone.
What does the cup look like independent of observation?
What does it look like independent of observation?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. How do you look at something independent of observation? What does it look like? Okay, there's the cup. Okay, that is on the table right now. I mean, I can close my eyes and I can move my hand over and put my hand on it. That's one thing. I can open my eyes and I can move my head and I can see it, and that's another thing. I can grab the handle, okay, which I understand handles from my developmental bit with physicalism. Right. But all I mean by it, okay, what I mean by it literally being there is that it stays in one place throughout this conversation, and I can keep picking it up and drinking coffee from it. That's what I mean by literal.
Okay, I see what you're saying. But if you are not sensing it, if your sense impressions are not in contact with it, what is there?
What is it when I'm not
stable? There's something stable that continues to exist, but what is that thing that continues to exist?
Okay, what does something stable that continues to exist mean, basically? Well, it would mean that it would only mean that no matter how many times I leave the room and come back, it's in the same place, right?
Right.
But I have to be here in order to perceive it, right? In order to look
Exactly.
at it. So what does it? So what does it look like? Look like when I'm not here? That's not even a sensible question because nobody's looking at it.
Well, that's what
But we know it's
at
gonna.
what is.
Okay, we know it's going to be in the same place. Now, I could figure out where you are, give you my address, buy you an airline ticket, have you come here tomorrow. I could leave that cup in that same spot, and we could be absolutely sure that you could pick that cup up.
Right.
Okay, you wouldn't deny that, right?
No, are you saying this conflicts with idealism in some way?
That is physicalism. That's as literally as I'm taking the cup being there. You're trying to say that I'm doing something beyond that, and I'm not sure what it is.
See, I guess
I call it the ontic delusion. Anyway.
But I mean, I guess until you're observing it, there is something stable that remains out there. I'm saying what's stable and remains is mental processes. And then as we represent it, the cup comes into our senses. But what exists outside of representation, I would say it's a mental process. What would you say? What does it mean to be physical, independent of observation?
Independent of observation.
What does it mean for something to be physical if there's not an observer?
Okay, independent of observation simply means that according to a Cartesian space-time model, that we would find it in the same spot. That I could buy you an airline ticket and you could come here and you could find it in the same spot. That's what I mean. I don't mean anything beyond that. I don't know what kind of spooky stuff. For instance, I don't know what is on the far side of the star Betelgeuse, right? I mean, I can't see that right now, right? I can't see either side of it actually. So I mean, it's just but we kind of know where it is, and we can keep track of it. And every night when we turn our telescopes on it, we go find it, right? What is physicalism claiming beyond that? The only thing that physicalism is claiming
depends on the physicalist you're talking to, but that they exist in a definite physical spatio-temporal state, that space and time exists out there independent of the mind. And
a little while ago you said that the mental perception of the cup persists. That's why I could buy you an airline ticket and you could come here. Okay. But
there's ability to mental processes. There's habits and instincts of mind that are part of universal consciousness.
Okay, so I buy you a ticket.
I, as a localized perspective, am perceiving one tiny aspect of it. I'm representing one tiny aspect of the universal mind, which has particular ways of operating. So it's not a surprise that when I perceive it, there's stability to it. There's consistency to it.
Okay, so why does the universal mind do that? And why are you making this it's mental a literal thing? Why do you believe it's mental when nobody, like, I buy you an airline ticket, we both go to sleep tonight, neither of us are looking at the cup. Where's the cup in the universal mind? Why is it in the same place tomorrow when you get here and we both look at it?
Well, space and time come about by me creating a model of the universe. So I guess you're still operating within the physicalist mindset.
Okay.
Why
so
do I think
let's
mental?
Operate?
Because all I have access to is my experience. So to go beyond and say something exists other than my experience is already sort of hypothesizing about something I don't have access to. Anyway, so you can only know through your experience. So to say there's something outside of experience is an abstraction.
Okay. So let's try to get out of the physicalist mindset. So when you and I are sleeping tonight, and we've already arranged to fight over the cup tomorrow. We get to fight over it. Where's the cup? Right? It doesn't exist at all, right? It has no literal.
I would say the perception of the cup ceases to exist unless somebody's observing it. But there is something out there that represents the cup is representing
something that keeps it stable, right?
Yeah.
What is it? What keeps it stable in your view?
Mental processes.
Okay, a mental process keeps it stable. Why?
Because mind operates in habits and instincts.
Okay, so could that mental process not keep it stable? Make the cup disappear from the universe entirely so that it never existed?
I mean, theoretically, the universal mind could change, and then it may not be as stable. I mean, I think that some of our constructs, mathematical constructs, like the speed of light, has some alteration in it.
Okay. I'm not finding any difference between Kastrup's idea of the stable mental processes of the universal mind and physicalism. I don't see any difference. I think he's arrived at physicalism in the same manner, but he just went a roundabout path. And he's just saying, instead of, oh, it's physical, oh, it's mental, he's just making a different noise. And he's talking about the same exact thing. Because you know in your heart of hearts that if we did this little exercise where you flew out here and and I left the cup there, that we could do that and it would be there. You know that. Yeah. Because you rely on that to live every day, right? So like you live in a naturalistic manner and you live with this space-time model.
Right.
That's how you navigate around your house, right? So why does everybody do that? I mean, what is the need for idealism? I don't see it.
Well, it's not saying that there isn't stability and consistency to the models, because you're predicting and making predictions about how the mind works. So there's stability and consistency to it. It's just that the model, the cognition, is not the thing in itself. The cognition is a representation of what
What is a representation?
It is representing it in perception, sound, color, sight, and then you go higher up the ladder. There's cognitions where you're creating a model of it, or you're creating a linguistic narrative of it, a theoretical narrative of it. Those are all narratives of your experience. You're telling a story about what's going on out there.
Now, every time a person says representation, they automatically assume dualism, that there's something that's viewing or something that's taking on this representation. You're making a separation between the viewer and the representation. And from a pure physicalist, naturalist, neuroscientific view, there is no such thing as representation. There is no viewer.
Dualism.
Yeah, it does.
No, because the representation is in itself a mental process. It is.
So does modeling. Okay, like when you say
mental process. If you're modeling, you're constructing something of your experience.
You're having an experience, right? But as soon as you say model or representation, you're automatically thinking that I am something that has made a model and I am viewing that model or acquiring that model in some manner, apprehending that model.
Would say that model is of a different substance other than my experience. I would say it's a part of my experience.
Yeah, that's substance dualism, but then there's property dualism too. But anyway, but think about that for a while. As soon as you think of a representation in your mind, you're automatically creating a dual. You're automatically making a separation. We're not talking about ontology or that you're reifying it or anything like that, but you're automatically making a dual, that you are seeing the representation of the cup. And good physicalists don't think that way. They
I
think more
acknowledge
in a
that I'm representing
processual.
something. I'm just not saying representation exists independent of mine. So a dualist would say that there's my mind and there's this physical substance out there. There's not a representation. It's more two different substances. So it depends on how you treat the representation and how you relate
Yeah,
to it.
I'm not talking about dualism per se. I'm talking about a dualist mistake. When you represent something, you're taking the something and you're presenting it. You're representing it to something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
That is a representation. That stuff doesn't exist. That isn't the way your mind works and the way your brain works. So anyway, let's see, I was going to ask another question. Why wouldn't physicalism work just as well for you? What would you lose with just saying, okay, I'm an organism, I have a mind, and the rest of the universe doesn't have a mind, doesn't have this process that I call mind? What would you lose in your life, in your worldview, whatever? What would you find unexplained or impossible, or what kind of a problem would you have?
Well, I sort of agree with Kastrup for one that the quantum phenomenon isn't very well explained under physicalism. I think idealism has a much better.
No, he is so wrong about that.
Well, that's a whole other conversation, but we can go down.
Yeah, I know
have another.
Yeah, none of us, including Kastrup, are physicalists or physicists, right? And you have to be a physicist in order to understand what quantum mechanics is really telling you. And no one has ever seen a quantum phenomena. No one has ever observed basically a quantum phenomena. I mean, none of us have. Physicists, maybe, but not us. No. So let's not go there. Let's not pretend that Kastrup, I mean, his interpretation of this observer problem in quantum mechanics has been dealt with for 150 years. I mean, forgot 120 years. And there are a lot of physicists. There are a lot of physicists.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, there are a lot of physicists that would disagree with him. Basically, that's a problem.
Obviously, these are not settled issues, but I side with Kastrup on that one.
Okay, so let's just. Yeah, but he's not a physicist. He's a computer programmer and a philosopher. So let's just discount all that. Not talk about quantum mechanics.
I think it's sort of just because you're not a physicist doesn't mean you can't understand what's going on. There's this, I think, myth that physicists are wizards that have access to things that other people don't. I think that keeps it siloed in a certain place where people create a mystical sort of looking up to these physicists as gods. I think what they're doing is conceivable to the average person. It's not some magic and mystery. I'm not saying it's easy to conceive, but
yeah. But anyway, what would you lose with physicalism? What sort of things would be unexplained, or what would you lose in your worldview or your comfort zone or whatever? What would be missing for you if you were a physicalist?
What would I lose?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily about loss. I'm more concerned with what feels more true.
Okay.
And
so it's more true. It's
disappointment.
It's more true to you that the cup that you're looking at, if you had a cup in your room, is a mental thing. Then it's just a cup, just a cup. I mean, it has to be like in some. It has to be in a mind somewhere. Your mind, but it's not just
through mind. You can't know something outside of mind. You need your mind in order to know something.
Okay, so what is mind again? What do you think mind is? A brain?
Mind is, well, a cup particularly is perception or a cognition.
What do you mean by that?
It's a representation of your experience. Or a re-representation. So it's a cognition.
Right. And you make the dualist mistake by thinking it's a representation. Okay, it's that is
What is
a
it?
dualist mistake. You think there's something that views the representation. You have an ego core that's viewing the representation, whereas a physicalist would say, no, there's a process, basically. And that process right now for this little bit of time includes the interaction of an organism with the cup. And not just the brain, but the entire organism, my hands, my breath, my everything is all interacting with the cup. Okay, but you're saying that no, there's this perception of the cup, and you reify that perception in the same way that you would accuse a physicalist of reifying the cup.
Well, I think you said you're an interactionist. What's doing the interacting?
The
What's doing the
interacting,
relating? Yeah.
me and the cup,
What are you?
my body, my organism and the cup. I mean, like, okay, after long after I was 3 years old, maybe when I was 4 years old, I realized that I will, well, even at 3 years old, you realize you have a body, you realize you're an organism. Later on in high school, you start to see that you have a liver.
When you say
and
you
have
realize that you're appealing to perception and cognition. Realize is an experience.
Yeah, everything I do.
What's doing the realizing? You're appealing to your subjectivity.
Right. That doesn't mean that everything's in that. Okay, just because I appeal to my subjectivity doesn't mean that everything's inside of it.
I think it
right.
does.
Why would that mean everything's
subject?
Why?
Because everything ultimately comes back to subjectivity.
If everything was in your if everything was just in your subjectivity, you would have nothing to constrain or structure your knowledge of the world. Okay. Other than
what's cognition? That's what metacognition is.
What's that now?
You said if everything was in subjectivity, you would have nothing to, what'd you say?
Constrain.
That's what metacognition does.
Metacognition constrains?
Well, it makes sense of your
experience. Why? Like, why would I create a universe of space, time, or objects if there was nothing constraining me?
In order to
why would I? What's that?
In order to understand your experience.
Why wouldn't I come up with something entirely alien or off the wall? I mean, what constrains me to come up with enough? Basically, I have my constraints are such that you and I can communicate using a language, and you know what I mean by cup. Why do you know what I mean by cup? If we're just nothing but perception.
We have a shared linguistic structure. We both speak English.
Oh no! If I translated cup into French, it would a French person would know what a cup was too.
Well, a French person would. I don't speak French, so I wouldn't know what you're saying.
The only person that
pointing to.
I wouldn't. I can't imagine a human being that wouldn't know what a container for liquids was.
Basically. Well, then you're describing it. You're going beyond just cup.
Okay.
If you describe it, then you're going beyond. You're describing an experience, and then I could get a better sense of what you're appealing to. You're describing a cognition.
Okay, but you got to admit that a whole lot of us have the same constraints, right? We have these same constraints.
In how we perceive the world and how we cognize the world?
Right. We all seem to come up with the same physical model. Why do we all come up with space-time? If there is no space-time, why do we all come up with
space-time is a concept in itself. And I mean, I don't think everybody comes up with space-time. There could be people in the middle of the Amazon jungle who have no concept of space-time. And maybe they live more sort of. Yeah.
Okay. If they have no concept of space, how do they go find the coconuts?
I'm not saying intuitively they don't have a concept of space, but they may not have the more higher abstract notion of space-time like Einstein. But intuitively, you have spatio-temporal ability to kind of navigate your
Okay, why do they have that intuitively? Why is that
Because
a constraint?
why is it a constraint?
Yeah. Why do they have to walk through the jungle? Why can't they just reach out and grab a coconut? I mean,
Because
if culture is
perception and
all
cognition
it
are
is,
limited. Idealism doesn't mean you have the ability to do anything you want, or anything you imagine. You are a
why
localized
not?
perspective within, because perception and cognition are limited. We're trying
Yeah.
to improve it. So there's limits to what we can perceive and cognize and how we make sense of the world.
Wow. Okay, we've gone over an hour, so we're probably both burning out a little bit on this. But anyway, I still don't think I understand how you think about the world. It just seems so weird and alien
I would
to
say
me.
I'm not necessarily the best representative of it, but I would read his books. I would read all his books. I encounter a lot of critiques on YouTube of him, even by professional philosophers who seem to misrepresent and understand it. So I think the biggest error is that people don't spend time reading all his books.
Yeah, I haven't read all his books, but I've read a whole lot of them, and I'm just, I've gotten to the point where I had PTSD from just seeing his face on a YouTube video, and I still haven't gotten anywhere.
We have different interpretations of our experience of Kastrups. Different associations, I should say.
Yeah,
you, it's disgust; me, it's delight and pleasure.
The big piece that I'm reading, and it should contain everything, is his, let's see, what is it called? Oh my goodness. Analytic Idealism, a consciousness-only ontology. So that kind of has the whole thing. But he's got some other books on the softer parts of this idea and where it gets you to. Maybe I should take a look at them. But I just don't understand how you...
The most rigorous philosophical one that I've encountered is his book on Schopenhauer. And maybe...
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Because I think he goes into depth the most philosophically in that one.
Oh, I'm glad you told me that, because that would have been my last choice to read. Okay, so I'm going to move it up. I'm going to move it up to number 1. Let's see what you think. Okay. Well, cool. I think we figured some things out, but maybe we could do a round 2 and you could ask me about my physicalism.
Yeah.
Because
I enjoyed the conversation.
there's all...
Even if you don't agree, I appreciate the openness.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to get my mind around it, I guess. Because I do have a very...
It all goes back to mind.
Yeah, it does. I have a very clear model of physicalism and, the what consciousness is and all of that stuff. And that's how I run my life. And I just want to understand how an idealist ties his shoes. Because if I were an idealist, I don't think I'd be able to. Not right now, anyway. Maybe after I read the Schopenhauer book, I'll figure it out. But anyway.
Well, I'd be happy to talk again.
So I'm probably...
understand where you're coming.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to end the recording right here, and
all right,
hang on for a minute. And okay, goodbye, cruel world.